Welcome to another video. This time is not a mission, but we're just going to do a retrospective slash review of the first two Wing Commander games, which you can get as a bundle on GOG.com. So let me go ahead and do a quick clarification. As far as PC game is concerned, I usually only have two storefronts I go to, GOG.com and Steam. And earlier today, I did a quick search on Steam to see if there's any Wing Commander games available, and none of them were there. So if you want to get into the Wing Commander series, this is the only place to do it, right here on this website. So without further ado, let's just go ahead and get into the review real quick of each of the two games and their expansion packs. Two expansion packs for both games. Now, to give you a little bit of an idea, this website right here, the Wing Commander Combat Information Center, I usually use this as a guide for many of the missions that I was doing. Now, as a guide, it's very good, and it gives you some ideas of what you need to do in each mission to win and to progress the storyline. But, you know, a guide can only do so much for you. And basically, it still comes down to skill with this game. The guides do help a little bit so that you know what's going to be at each nav point, basically, but they can only help so much. And they're right, I'd say probably 9.5 times out of 10. Sometimes there's a little bit of a, well, the person writing it wasn't aware of something and they just never went back to correct it. But sometimes people down in the comments will correct the issue. So it's a pretty good resource. I mean, it's a very good resource, I would say. So let's just go ahead and get into the first game. So this is also the same website, just a different web page on the website. It's kind of hard to navigate the two different websites, even though they're the same. But this is the mission tree for the first Wing Commander game. And I wanted to bring this up for a very specific reason. With the first Wing Commander game, it's actually, in my opinion, a pretty good game. Using the GOG ranking system, I gave it a 3 out of 5. And I don't know if that's fair so much to Wing Commander 1, because Wing Commander 1 was actually a good game, and the two expansion packs definitely did bring it down a bit. So I'd almost say that the Wing Commander 1 game would probably be closer to a 4 out of 5 stars, honestly. And the reason why I want to bring that up is this mission tree structure. It wasn't that difficult to stay on the winning side of the mission tree. Yes, the performance of the game, as you can see from many of my videos, was very sluggish at times. And there's just really no way around that with using DOSbox. You're going to get some sluggish performance. One of the highest rated reviews for the game, though, says that it's unplayable. And I absolutely don't believe that at all. The first Wing Commander is very playable. In fact, I was able to play through the whole thing without any really major issues. The only thing is, like I say, if you stay on the winning track, like once I actually kind of started figuring out what I was doing, and I did the winning mission here and went to Gimli, even though I lost Kurosawa and got sent over here to Rostov, I was still able to get back into the Venice system. And there were some challenges here and there. I'm not going to lie, there was definitely some challenge, but it wasn't bad. My first playthrough, the hardest system I was in was Brimstone. And Brimstone was one of those systems where you're flying the Scimitar fighter, and it just didn't have a lot of punch and couldn't take a lot of damage. It was just very slow. It's not a very good aircraft, and also happened to be the only system that you flew with Maniac in the original game. And it's funny that that guy somehow survived through to the end of the first two games, because he's not very good. He just wasn't very good. So yes, Brimstone was pretty frustrating, but that was really the only system that was frustrating to me. Even Kurosawa, though I failed it wasn't like I was frustrated with how things go. And I want to point out that word frustration. Keep that in the back of your mind because we're going to get to some stuff here with that word. Moving on though, even if you somehow got on the losing track here, I don't even know how you could fail this, on your system. And let's just say you did. Even the gateway system, you should have easily been able to win it and get back to the brimstone system. These first few right here, it shouldn't have been that difficult to get back on a winning track. Brimstone's difficult, and that could have definitely forced you down to this area. And these three systems right here, Port Headland, Hubble Star, and Hell's Kitchen, if you somehow end up in those three systems are frustrating. When I played through them, I wasn't even really trying because I was actually trying to lose. So for me, losing it wasn't that hard for me to just keep going down the path. But if you were actually somehow trying to win in those three systems, okay, that would be frustrating. Having said that, it's actually extremely easy to avoid. I never even remotely ended up in that quadrant of this whole system tree. So it was never that big of a deal to me. So yes, first Wing Commander, I'd say probably a 4 out of 5. We'll go ahead and say that. 4 out of 5 for the first Wing Commander. Then that brings me to the expansion packs. So you have the Secret Missions and Secret Missions 2 Crusade. And I'm just going to go ahead and point out right now that both of those expansion packs bring back to that word frustrating. The first expansion pack, Secret Missions 1, like out of the gate, it was bad. Like all the initial missions were they were designed to be frustrating from the ground up, and they were done in such a way that it made no sense. You know, one of the things about Wing Commander is almost every one of those systems that you were in, you had 3 missions. So the overall success in that mission determined whether or not you won or you failed. So you had 3 missions in each one of those systems, and they kind of added up all your objectives there. Whereas in both the Secret Missions expansion packs, you only have basically 2 missions per stop, as it were. And there's no room for any leeway. You had to get all the objectives, every single one. Otherwise, you fail immediately. And the game was both expansion packs are very linear, and they just basically the mission design was very bad, especially in that first expansion pack. The first expansion pack had even more horrendous performance than the original Wing Commander. It was just really bad performance at times. And then you combine that with just this frustrating mission design on top of it. That was the first time I had to actually pull out cheat codes to actually beat stuff. It was just too frustrating, and it was just not very fun. That's the problem. Secret Missions 2, on the other hand, I will give it credit where credit is due. Let me roll back for a second. Secret Missions 1. If I were to rank that out of 5 stars, probably give it 2. It was that frustrating of a mission, of an expansion pack. Secret Mission 2, I do want to give it some credit. One of the credits that I would give it is the fact that the engine was significantly improved. And you could definitely tell that they had done a lot better job. It wasn't CPU cycle limited to the same extent that the original Wing Commander and Secret Missions 1 were. So definitely give them credit there. They had actually started to get some of the kinks worked out of the system and get better performance. Wasn't perfect, but it was much better. Having said that, however, the mission design, once again, is very frustrating. So the very first half of the game, maybe the first 6 missions or so, they were easy. So that's definitely a stark contrast to the first expansion pack. They're very easy, and it's like, wow, okay, this isn't bad at all. This is actually pretty good. And the storyline itself was pretty decent. But then after that halfway point, they just slammed you with just absolutely ridiculous designs and just and things they want you to do, goals. And like I said, it was very easy to fail. And like if you didn't get every single objective, and they were just almost impossible, you didn't get every single objective, you would fail, and that's it. And you've only got 2 missions per stop, as it were, to do that. Just not very fun. And and that was the thing is also, even when you got to the end, you didn't really know if you were on the winning track or the losing track. It was very hard to tell which track you were on. In fact, let me just go here to this website real quick, because one of the nice things they do, not that. One of the nice things they do here is they kind of have the mission branch for those guys as well, and I'll kind of show you what I mean here. So there's like 2 missions here, 2 missions here, two. I think there might be 1 or 2 that have like 3, but for the most part, they're almost all 2 missions. And if you didn't get all the objectives, they immediately threw you into this losing route, and it would be very hard, find out which track you're on. Especially since in this case, all the mission or all the systems, excuse me, you're either in the Fireka system or the Corsair system. So there wasn't a lot of, differences in system names to let you know where you were actually on this mission tree. So that's frustrating. So yeah, mission design definitely brought the second expansion pack down, but I will give it a little bump. So we'll say, I don't know, we'll give it a 3 out of 5 for that second mission pack, because they did do some improvements to the engine, which were, appreciated, but it wasn't enough to basically save it from being a good experience. So yes, when we get back to the first Wing Commander, the main game itself was actually pretty fun. It had some performance issues, but you could even use that to your advantage, basically. So the first game was good. 2 expansion packs were frustrating at best, and they just weren't very fun. So that brings me to Wing Commander 2. Wing Commander 2, they did an amazingly good job with fixing the engine performance. Just such a much better experience as far as how the game performed. I did notice there were slowdowns here and there, mostly when you had the Jalkethi ships on screen. Those were that for some reason those would actually slow down performance. That aircraft in particular. Not sure why, but they would actually slow things down. But other than that, the performance of the game was drastically improved, and that was just a year later. It's amazing how much of an improvement they did to the engine in a year. And the story itself was actually pretty dang good. I liked the storyline to Wing Commander 2. The problem was it just fell apart at the end. The whole idea of this traitor working with the Kilrathi because you failed to save the planet that his brother was on, that the Kilrathi killed. So because you and your group failed to save that planet, he's focusing all his hatred on you and working with the enemy that killed his brother and everybody on the Goddard colony back in Secret Missions 1. That is probably the biggest plot hole, just absolute insane reason for betraying your people that I've ever heard. Ever. It's just so bad. And the fact of the matter is, not only that, but the Jazz basically gets away. And so as not even resolved in a satisfying manner. So yes, there's that. One thing I will definitely say is kind of a good thing and then also kind of not a good thing about Wing Commander 2 is it's neat that basically almost every system that you go to has about 4 missions. But of those 4 missions, only one is ever really critical to determining which path you go on. Um, it's almost like you could just basically eject through all the freaking missions except and just focus on the one mission to do what you need to do. So that's kind of nice. But and then one things I did like about the Wing Commander 2 mission structure is everything was kind of like a zigzag. So it always brought you back to a centralized system. So like right here, I remember when I was playing through Gwynedd, I actually failed that mission tree because I failed the critical mission. So they sent me to Gorokar. And then when I completed that, it sent me back to the Gorokar system. And then it sent me, and then when I won, I went to Novaya Kiev, then Heaven's Gate, because then I basically won everything from then on out. But it also brought you back. So if you had failed Gorokar, instead of going here, it would have sent you to an alternate route with Novaya Kiev. I'm not a big fan of the alternate routes being the same name, which made things confusing. But it basically it was a zigzag pattern. So if you failed something, it wasn't the end of the world. It wasn't like a Wing Commander 1 where you got stuck on that bottom quadrant. You're in for a world of hurt, and you might as well just reload your game. Whereas here, they could be difficult, don't get me wrong, but they were doable, and you could always get right back on track, which is really nice. The only downside to it all boiled down to usually just one mission in each of those systems to determine whether or not you won the whole thing, which kind of cheapened the experience because with Wing Commander 1, it took all your missions as a whole to determine how you did in that system for success or failure. So that'd be one slight quibble I would have with Wing Commander 2, as it were. Other than that, the mission structure is very good. Um, the Tithrak Meng system was probably, well, obviously it was the last system of the game on the winning track. It was definitely the hardest one, and it was difficult. Um, but it wasn't so difficult that I had to resort to cheat codes. I was able to beat it. So it was definitely a good challenge. One of the weird things I would say is you got the same ending, even if you went to the alternate system here in Gwynedd. You got the same exact ending. It was like, but you didn't really take out the enemy base, but they still gave you the hero's ending kind of thing. That's just another minor quibble. So for me, I would say Wing Commander 2 was improved in just about every area. I mean, even landing was better. One of the things I would say about Wing Commander 1, an unnecessarily frustrating thing that I would have to do with, was just landing on the carrier. Sometimes it just wouldn't do. It was just so annoying. Whereas Wing Commander 2, they had fixed even the landing. So that was much better. Performance was better. Storyline, for the most part, was better than the previous 3 stories. By far, it just had an extremely big plot hole that you're like, come on, really? Even still, I would say it was a fun time. And so I'll go ahead and give it a 5 out of 5 because I'm a pretty lenient reviewer, I guess. But I would give the Wing Commander 2 a 5 out of 5 for sure. Special Operations 1, on the other hand. What can I say about it? It was so close to being a good expansion pack. It was just so close. It was right there. The missions were, they lined up very good. Um, Once again, it was very linear, but it wasn't a problem. I felt the storyline was kind of cool. It was almost like divided into two parts, kind of like with the mutiny section to begin with, and then the attack or trying to free the people in Gorakar in the second half. So it's kind of like a tale of two different stories, kind of with very little going on between the two of them. So the story wasn't bad. It just wasn't as good as what had come before in Wing Commander 2. But the last two missions, I don't know what they were thinking when they designed those last two missions, but they were just impossible to beat. And I had to once again revert to cheat codes just to get through them, and it was that kind of sucked all the enjoyment out of it. I mean, the last mission in Wing Commander 2 was difficult, and I played it several times before I beat it, but nothing like the last mission in Special Operations 1. Whereas after about an hour, I was just like, that's it, I'm done. There's just no way of beating this. The people are just way too accurate with their shots, and just the odds they send you up against, it's just ridiculous. It reminds me of some of the stuff in the first couple expansion packs. Just very, it would be a good expansion pack, but the ending just absolutely killed it. And by ending, I mean difficulty. The difficulty was just through the roof. Storyline, pretty good, not the greatest, but I wouldn't call it a bad story. It was definitely above average. And of course, the engine performance is still pretty decent. So, I don't know. You can always revert to using cheat codes, so in that case, I guess you'd give it a 4 out of 5. But it definitely continued to uphold the tradition of frustrating expansion packs, which was too bad. Special Operations 2, on the other hand, was actually from beginning to end a pretty good expansion pack. I mean, a very good expansion pack. I would actually say they had made the performance of the game actually even better than in Wing Commander 2. I noticed it was actually a little bit better performing. The not a big fan of the Morning Star that they had you using for a lot of the last missions in the game. I thought its missile layout was poor, to say the least. But, from beginning to end, you could play all the missions in that expansion pack, and it wasn't anything that made you want to tear out your hair. So, from that perspective, they had actually improved the performance of the engine. The storyline was actually much more concentrated than the previous expansion pack. It was all focused on dealing with the Mandarins. And so from that perspective, is definitely a better storyline because it was focused on one thing, really. And, you got to bring justice to Jazz. That kind of wrapped things up very nicely. So not only from the self-contained story, it was good, but it also wrapped up the entire Wing Commander 2 storyline. For the most part, it wrapped things up in a mostly satisfying way, even though you find out that the Empire of Kilra is doing stuff in the background that's basically they're still winning the war. So that's kind of, I guess, alluding to dark days ahead in Wing Commander 3. So I would say Special Operations 2 would definitely be a 5 out of 5 for me. It was definitely fun to play. I was challenged here and there. A lot of times, obviously, if you see my videos, I came flying in with just like one gun active, and I just barely won, but I won. And that's the thing, is it was never to the point where it was so unbalanced that I was just frustrated and I had to use a cheat code. It was actually doable. It was a good game. Believe it or not, the more disappointing stuff with it was when I was actually trying to go back on the completionist route and get some of the bad endings. And the bad endings were just like, yep, you're court-martialed. Didn't even get any credits. So, so the bad endings were like disappointing, not because you lost, but because there was nothing special about them. Basically, it was the exact same ending as the good ending, only without you actually bringing the Mandarins to justice. The exact same thing would happen, or be even less exposition that you just, here we're retreating, and that's it. You're court-martialed. That's it. And but from the actual just playing through the game, most likely you would never see that. I never did until after I was purposely trying to find it. So yes, definitely a good expansion pack. And so the last thing I'd like to point out is the price. At $6, you can't really go wrong for that price. And I'll go ahead and also say that this game, like many others on GOG.com, goes on sale all the time. And you could probably get it for like $2.50, maybe even as low as $1.50 when it goes on sale. And so if you're interested in playing this, I would definitely encourage you. Maybe avoid the first two expansion packs for Wing Commander 1, unless you just want to play with the Origin-K cheat running the whole time, because they're just frustrating as all heck. But for that price, I mean, it's definitely worth looking into for sure. And even at full price, that's not very expensive. Definitely worth buying. You can't go wrong with it. But GOG.com, to the best of my knowledge, is the only place where you can get it for PC. There are obviously, the first Wing Commander game came out on a lot of different platforms, so I'm not even going to, touch on any of those because I didn't play them. What I did play was this version using DOSbox, and so this is where you can get it. So yeah, that's basically it for my retrospective and review. I definitely say it's definitely worth getting. But I guess go into it knowing that the first game is going to have some performance issues. And if you go into it expecting those performance issues, you'll be fine. It's not unplayable, like some people say, like the very first review on this page says. It's not unplayable, but it is definitely something that you have to keep in mind when you're playing it. Other than that, just the cost of admission for Wing Commander 2 alone, that's worth it. That's a very good game and definitely something I think people would enjoy. So anyway, that's it for this video. See y'all in the next one.